presence, making every heart to sing. Master, teacher, friend of our fun way, teach us all your mastery too. Teach us how to let God's love hold sway, making joyous all we do. Godling, 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 happiness you bring. Make earth feel your presence, making every heart to sing. Let your buoyancy of love's release fill our worlds with sunshine bright. Help us walk the pathway home in ease, grateful, making all things right. Godling, 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 happiness you bring. Make earth feel your presence, making every heart to sing. Let your consciousness of victory won lift the strain and stress from all. Every gift of love from out the sun, for your dearest friend we call. Godling, 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 happiness you bring. Make earth feel your presence, making every heart to sing. Godling, 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 happiness you bring. Make earth feel your presence, making every heart to sing.
Be still and know that I am God. How fragrant are the divine expressions, how charged with hope and a feeling of happiness. Beloved children of the earth, from the transcendent realm of light, the realm of light's perfection, I am come to greet you tonight. In the name and by the power of Almighty God, by whose infinite hand I was led long ago out of the land of Egypt and out of the house of bondage, to make a trek across the wilderness, and to deliver to mankind the codification of the great law of God, which you know as the Ten Commandments. You have heard it said that by me came the law, and by the Christ came grace and truth. The Father has saw fit today to write his great laws and commandments within the hearts and minds of men, but it still requires a pioneer spirit and an open heart, facing the wilderness with great braveness and constancy and diligence, in order to invoke the presence of the great law of God from within the heart. I know full well the meaning of frustration. I know full well what it means to guide a great people scattered upon the plains like sheep without a shepherd. The mankind of earth today are like that. Divers influences, political, religious, and otherwise insidious, have moved against the children of men and have corrupted the pure God design which the heart flame of every child of earth would naturally produce if it were not tampered with through the so-called laws of heredity and environment. Some time ago, in New York City, the beloved goddess of liberty, the spokesman for our karmic board, declared that there never had been a condition called original sin, because God could not originate it. Blessed and beloved ones, this has always been true. But man's consciousness of God has always reflected the fullness of its own limited capacity. With an expansion of the capacity of man to reflect God, greater understanding of his laws is made possible, and a more progressive civilization comes about. The universities today have expanded their intellectual capacities, and the pages of history will reveal progress has been made in every area. This is true of the heart and the mind of man and the spirit, and yet the lag is very great there. For as we look upon mankind today, we behold great progress in science and invention, and even in jurisprudence. But small progress, beloved ones, when I speak of the mass mind in terms of knowing their own divinity. I have stood upon Horeb's mount. I have stood in the presence of God. I have heard the voice of God speaking to me and saying, I am that I am. Go unto Pharaoh and say unto him, let my people go. I have seen Aaron's rod cast down to become a serpent and to devour all the serpents of the magicians of Egypt. I have seen the lightning and heard the thunder peal from Horeb's height. I have lived among the people of China as Lord Ling. I have appeared with Elijah upon the holy mount of transfiguration, and I am one of the brothers of light, one of the elder brothers of the great white brotherhood, called today by you the God of happiness. Perhaps, blessed ones, the reason men call me, who know me, the God of happiness, is because in past times I knew the fullness of the cup of frustration and despair, and did not hesitate to move forward by the grace of God, taking advantage also of Miriam and Aaron, who held up my arms, and of others. And this I urge you to do. Support one another, be kind, be considerate to one another and to all men. Be as wise as serpents, and truly be as harmless as doves. So the great law of God, written in your inward parts, shall come into the fullness of manifestation through you. And men beholding you shall behold the face of God. And this is no blasphemy. Before my ascension, when I came down after receiving the tablets of the law, my face did shine as the sun to the children of Israel, so much so that they placed a veil over my face, symbolizing the veil over the law. The veil over the law can now be explained. It was simply a veil of human consciousness. Men could not recognize within the law the quality of grace and the quality of mercy. They were unable to perceive the justice of the law. And so it is today that men behold that one life stream is taken from the earth, one whom they love, and they are bereaved, and they feel that life has changed. Blessed and beloved ones, the Eternal Father has sent forth each of you from the flame of his own being, and it is inevitable that all shall return to that flame, to that haven secure, to that peace of God which passeth all understanding. I would like to point out to you tonight that when one has drunk the cup to its bitter dregs of unhappiness, one quite naturally accepts the cup of happiness. And so I am known as the God of happiness. And I am happy in the ascended Master's octave, and I desire tonight to produce a feeling of God happiness within you, but not a feeling of God happiness bordering on elation of a temporary nature, but a sustained feeling of God happiness resulting from your right appropriation of the divine energies entrusted to your care. Beloved ones, so you have erred, so you have broken the law of God. Well, I would remind you that millions have done likewise. Millions have broken the laws of God, and the few have kept them perfectly. The few who have kept them perfectly are ascended beings, God-free in the light. And I think the unhappiness of those who are left is seldom exceeded. But likewise, when you have shaken off the lethargy and the unhappiness of the temporary delusions of the senses, and you are aware of your own great divinity and invoke it forth by the power of the sacred fire, and are transfigured as was the Christ and as we have been, I am certain that you will then, in the full knowing of God, recognize that you are the very embodiment of happiness, for God is eternally happy, because he knoweth nothing but the perfection of his own pure nature. The nature of God, beloved ones, ought to be understood. The nature of God cannot descend below the Holy Christ's self and still be God. The Holy Christ's self is therefore the mediator. It is the living grace of the law of God. Mankind cannot ascend into the heart of their presence ere they would be consumed by the sacred fire. And therefore the status quo remains. You remain in your octave, and we remain in ours. When the summons comes to you to enter into our octave, through the ritual of the ascension and the blessing of it, it will be because the atoms of your body are purified enough to retain their immaculate identity. To call you now into the ascension would be to wreak destruction upon your lives, for you could not in your present state enter in to the purity of God. When your physical form sleeps, and your consciousness sleeps, and the etheric body sleeps, there is no awakening of the sordid memories of mankind. There is no stirring of those etheric records. There is no remembrance of the violations of the great law of God. Then it is quite easy for the pure soul to rise untrammeled to the great heights of God and to find reunion with that divine presence of itself. There in pure light, light communes with light, fire communes with fire, and the pillar of fire which followed us and led us in the wilderness stands between you. But when, beloved ones, the human consciousness enters in, it must melt by the fervent heat of the Spirit. And therefore, if man would enter in that imperfect state, all the works and identity which he would have built up would be destroyed and erased in a moment. And in great mercy the law holds man in his octave until, through the purification of the power of the sacred fire, he is able to rise. It is not the will of God that any should perish. It is the will of God that the great law of love, the great law of eternal truth, should function, and that your own God presence, the pillar of fire, should go before you to light your way into your eternal victory. The pillar of fire is a cloud of glory. Remember, by night it was a pillar of fire, and by day a cloud of witness. And so your own mighty tube of light, beloved ones, enwraps all who invoke it forth with a great cloud of glory. And the violet fire erases the power of the night in mankind and the shadow, and man is led to recognize the eternal witnesses of his own identity, his mighty I Am presence, and his holy Christ self, which witness to him the truth of his being. O God, give mankind truth. Give them the wisdom to perceive truth. Give them the ability to understand it and then use it with discrimination to cut themselves free. Your wilderness wanderings will cease, beloved ones, when you follow your own mighty God self through the wilderness to the promised land, flowing with the milk and honey of spiritual food and drink. You will eat and drink into the kingdom of God because you imbibe at the Lord's table. You partake of manna, which comes down from on high. Is there greater happiness than this? I tell you, beloved ones, fear has crippled the mankind of earth. Lethargy and brittleness keeps them bound in the pews of idolatrous ideas about God, and they sit as graven images, warped, twisted, and deluded, and they know not the perfection of the living power of God, and yet it is there, within the range of their beating heart. All can seize it and know God. Be still and know that I am God. The God of your own being is your life. This life will lead all who will obey it. It is within all. It is a living witness. You have a living God, a God who is a consuming fire. But you would not desire to enter into the heart of that fire in your physical form or with your discordant nature, because it would mean instantaneous destruction. But through the power of divine grace and mercy, the sacred fire can be invoked and called forth, and it will but destroy the baser elements of the earth through an alchemical transformation, whereby mankind retains their identity, retains their being and the essence thereof, and are cut free by the power of divine discrimination from every discordant thought, feeling, and idea. And they stand forth with all the eternal happiness of the eternal spheres of light's perfection. Do you think, beloved ones, that all the science of the earth was devised by finite, puny minds? Stop. Come now and reason together. Thus saith the Lord. Come now and reason together. How can a babe, beloved ones, in a few short years, master the science of the body mechanics, stand upright upon its feet, learn many languages, learn all the laws of science which mankind can teach, and begin to construct devices so profound that entire eras of life must pass before these inventions can be produced. In a short space of from 10 to 50 years, many of the ancient inventions of Atlantis have been reproduced and manifested among mankind. A very interesting facet of this is connected with the life of Henry Ford, Thomas Edison, and Harvey Firestone. These three gentlemen were all priests of the sacred fire and knew each other well during the Atlantean civilization. When they came into manifestation and embodiment during a past era, these individuals brought forth a tremendous amount of good and focused it through industrial power in this great nation. These men are only a few examples of the profound knowledge which has been retained through life streams, coming down through the time stream and flooding forth the light of their knowledge, the science that is locked within them from old existences on Atlantis, the Morya, and even other systems of worlds. A blind theology, and almost, pardon this expression, idiotic theocracy, confounds the men it seeks to free, but it does not seek to free them in truth, for it does not perceive, simply because it cannot and will not, the light of eternal truth. Mankind must learn to shake the dust from off their feet and to consider with the divine reason invested in their heart and mind. Do they think, as they gaze through a microscope upon a molecule of matter, that that matter is not designed intricately, powerfully, and wisely by the mind of God? As they gaze out into space at myriad turning worlds, concentric systems of suns, universes without end, can they think in their mortal consciousness that life is as described by a blind theocracy and theology? Arise, ladies and gentlemen of good faith. Adore the divinity that is within you. Let that witness of God that beats your heart and sustains you and enlightens your mind be your guide. Accept this as your guide. Accept the leading of your own mighty I Am presence and be free. Be free from all that binds by the power of the sacred fire. Won't you please be seated? Because of a certain preparation for tomorrow, which is the commemoration of the resurrection of the beloved Jesus. Beloved Jesus, on mighty light rays, is projecting his presence also into this sanctuary as I am speaking to you. And so the law which came through me shall now become the law of grace and eternal happiness. Because that law is being written within your hearts with living fire. Who shall require any man to be their teacher in the strictest sense of the order of things, if they have the witness within themselves that speaks to their heart and speaks to their soul and mind, saying, "Be still and know that I am God." Oh, I do not intend, beloved ones, to deny the power of the ascended masters, nor the power of the elder brothers, or even of the spiritual teachers of light upon this earth. But I am now speaking of your first reliance upon your own mighty I Am presence. I am speaking of the witness within yourself, obedience to the great law that is written there. This law can never be deceived. It is the law of love, the law of life, the law of your very immortal existence. And through its power you shall clean escape the error in which the world dwells, the mass mind, the pressures of Maya, the glamour, and the attractions which are unsatisfying to the soul of man shall be removed from your desire bodies, and you shall find happiness in the power of the angelic host, and in entering into a spirit of understanding of the sacred fire and what it will mean as you draw it forth in your bodies, into your homes, into your minds and affairs. Think, beloved ones, mankind do not realize that immortality means just that, immortality. They do not realize that we are real beings. They do not realize that we are not, as they might imagine us to be, vague and vapory spirits, but we are living, tangible beings. We have a form. We can materialize or dematerialize at will. We serve the great white brotherhood, and we serve mankind to help set this earth free today. We who were leaders in times past have not forsaken the earth which God loves, for God has not forsaken the earth or its people. There is no one in this room, no one in this city, no one in this nation, and no one upon this planet whom the Father has forsaken. All are called. Few have chosen to answer the call. But the Father's hand of love stretches out to every son and daughter, and they will answer. But the children of men ought to emulate the sons of God. The children of men ought to emulate it, that they may become the children of the light. How else shall they escape? How else shall they throw off the lethargy and the effluvia of human foolishness, which in thousands and thousands of years has never given the earth her freedom from war or distress or confusion and the malice of the ungoverned human mind, which is worse, as St. Germain has said, than an animal in the jungle. Beloved ones, you are called to a magnificent calling, to an estate of divine grace, an estate of Christ's grace, an estate wherein the power that shall flow through you shall magnify the purposes of creation as originally set forth in the great God design. Do you think, beloved ones, when in the building of the simple homes in which mankind live, an architect is required and blueprints are drawn, that there is not a God design for every one of you, a blueprint for your life? This blueprint is related to the Blu-ray. The Blu-ray is related to the will of God and the perfection of God. And so there is in the great cosmic light a blueprint of the will of God for each life stream. And it is good, it is beautiful, it is marvelous, and it will bring you happiness if you will gaze upon it. If you will fix your gaze upon it, it will begin to do a perfect work within your world. But unless you shall pay attention to it and give it your attention, by directing your attention to your own mighty I Am presence, and then amplifying that attention without limit to reach up into the Godhead and draw forth that divine plan, how can you know it? The attention of mankind has been upon entertainment, mimicry of human patterns of thought and feeling. And so the mad traffic rush today throughout the busy streets of the world creates countless confusions in the mind of man. Frustrations and unhappiness are spewed forth into the atmosphere. These accumulate. Countless frustrations accumulate, and they condense into the upper atmosphere. And storms and turbulence are born from human frustrations and fears, hatreds and malice, viciousness, shadow and darkness, and enclosing the light of God. All of this, beloved ones, is brought about by man's wrong use of God's pure energy. I do not prefer to dwell upon negative thoughts, and yet I am sure that some of you may remember how that as Moses I found it necessary to slay an Egyptian and to bury his body in the sand. If any life stream upon this planet who has premeditated or planned murder were to perceive the record of that event and to know the penalty which I paid for it, I am certain there would be an end to all murders, perhaps an end to all acts of violence to mankind. All acts of violence take their toll, but there is another form of violence, and that is the violence of wrong thought. Today, beloved ones, so many people, because of their irritations and frustrations, their ideas revolving around their own central ego, they are constantly in a state of unrest, and they do not know peace. To them I again speak, be still and know that I am God. Find the way of happiness within your own being, through the quiescence of your own being, by saying to the sea and the turbulence of the sea of human emotion, be still. Ladies and gentlemen, would you give ear to me now as I ask you to do what may seem a strange thing to some, but which is a reality of spiritual progress? I will ask you all to do it, but give you the free will of declining. Most of you are aware of the statement made by beloved Jesus, if thine eye be single, thy whole body shall be full of light. Directly above your two eyes is the pineal gland in the center of your forehead. I ask you to follow me closely, and when I tell you to, if you will, direct your attention to that gland, and then as you focus your thought there, determine that that gland shall gaze upon the perfection of your own mighty I Am presence in the atmosphere above you. And for a period of 3 minutes, keep your attention anchored upon your presence. I shall ask your pianist to play during that period in order to still the vibratory action of your four lower bodies and keep your attention upon your God self. Now, ladies and gentlemen, bear in mind that your presence is an eternal reality, that it can be seen, can be felt, and can be realized. It costs you absolutely nothing to try, and therefore I ask you to think at the point above your natural physical eyes to the single eye vision. For there is located an orb which is atrophied through disuse in man. And as you concentrate upon that spot, gaze upward through it at the perfection of your presence. Now the first thing you probably will see, blessed ones, is the white Christ light descending down through the top of your head. This is the connection between your mighty I Am presence that beats and sustains your heart. I shall be still, but pour my assistance to you this night to give you the happiness of contacting your own God self. This is my Easter gift to you in the name of eternal happiness. Please play. Beloved ones, as your attention poured out to your presence, the light which at spiritual levels has flooded this room is transcendent indeed, and to me reminiscent of the glory of the Transfiguration. I am therefore hopeful this night that the transfiguring spirit of the pure Christ consciousness shall flood into your world, your minds, and your affairs, and permeate them permanently with all of the beauty and the wonder of our spheres of perfection, until naught but the God happiness of eternity can be a part of your world. Beloved ones, how frequently mankind's attention is taken away from their presence. During those happy times when the fullness of the ineffable light of God is flooded forth, individuals say to themselves, "Oh, I would never know anything else but the perfection of this light. And then along comes the appearance of discord, and as children invading a watermelon patch, they dash away and they are gone. But, blessed ones, remember there is nothing permanent but God, and God good. All else must vanish away. Ignorance is vanquished by knowledge. Love replaces hate. Courage replaces fear. The ascension takes the place of that which descended, and elevates that which descended, which is worthy, as the host is elevated in the ritualistic service of the church, until that which came down from heaven is exalted and raised up once again. And so there, in that light, upon the Mount of Transfiguration, I appeared with the Christ and with Elijah. And the beauty of that experience, the love of the Christ, flooded forth to all the countries of the world. And so it is now, as I am speaking to you, an action of the sacred fire is taking place. And in the great cave of light, 10 masters of the great white brotherhood are standing in sacred invocation. And these 10 masters are invoking the Christ white radiance of the sacred fire, and calling forth an amplification 7 times as great as it has ever been in any previous Easter season. And they have received a dispensation from on high to radiate and pour this forth tomorrow with the first blush of the dawn, that it may bless the lives of all who are sensitive to it. And those who are not shall find very wondrous things happening in their lives, silently, wondrously, as the majesty of God, the inward law written within their hearts, begins to unfold as a scroll. And this unfolding scroll identifies them completely with their own great God self, and that which has been inscribed, as it has been written by one of the great poets, the moving finger writes, and having writ moves on, shall move on to write the law of God within the inward parts, which is the law of eternal happiness. And I tell you, the mankind of this planet shall know a victory which they have never known before, and the promised land of eternal felicity and God happiness shall be invoked by the pure Christ radiance, until earth shall hear the sound of the trumpets of heaven, and the dawn of the eternal golden age shall blossom forth as the flowers. The little children shall dash forth to meet the Christ consciousness, singing songs of rejoicing, and the hearts of mankind shall no longer look forward to the bane of old age, but to the eternal youth of the Christ consciousness, revivifying and renewing the cells of everyone's body and mind, until by the divine fervor of the Holy Spirit there is charged the fire element into the consciousness of mankind, which throws off the weight of human distress and effluvia, and brings in the Christ victory, which heals, which raises the dead, which restores sight to blinded eyes, and hearing to deaf ears. All of this and more, oh, so very much more, is in store for all who will accept the fullness of the Christ radiance, the blessing of the great white brotherhood, the all-encompassing, all-encircling love of God. The Ark of the Covenant is the heart of man, and there is inscribed therein the eternal laws of God, the eternal scales balanced in divine justice, mercy and grace in perfect balance with law, and therefore Alpha and Omega, the beginning and the end of all, is charging forth his light into the eternal realms, into the mortal realms, to make mortality put on the vestments of immortality. O immortal love, seize and possess and take hold of these children of the light and lead them by the sacred fire to the promised land of God freedom, until they shall know not but the victory of their own eternal being. I, Lord Ling, bless you now as you go to your homes and places of rest this night. Remember that I have spoken to you concerning the eternal grace which is within you. Deny it if you will. It can never deny you. I thank you. You are standing, ladies and gentlemen, I pray that the infinite grace of the Eternal Father will make you aware of the fact that by a simple act of thought and divine graciousness expressed through your life stream, you are able to turn now and to face the light from whence you came. And as you face the light in much the same manner that a group of young campfire girls or Boy Scouts sit around an open fire, you will realize that the shadow is behind you and your face is toward the flame. And so, as your Knight Commander today, I greet you with the fullness of ascended Master Light and love and the dignity of the Eternal Father which rests upon you as a mantle of eternal purity. Won't you please be seated? You know, blessed ones, I expect the day shall come when, as your Knight Commander, I will have the opportunity of knighting a few of you within this group. Now, I am most anxious to knight some of the gentlemen, but I have not yet decided just exactly what I shall do with the ladies who merit it. But I suppose that when the time comes that it shall be fulfilled, that the problem will have been solved. For some of the ladies are truly running a merry chase, if you will pardon my expression, and the gentlemen will find it somewhat difficult to keep up unless they shall make a valiant effort. But I commend you both, and I do wish to introduce a note of divine humor occasionally into these matters, for although they are somewhat solemn matters, God is, as you noted this morning, flooded with a spirit of eternal happiness. The address of beloved Fun Way and Amaryllis, the goddess of spring, was intended to bring a lightness into your step. But I do not expect that any of you who are beyond 80 shall trip the light fantastic or waltz to any of the melodies of Strauss which I inspired, and yet I should be most happy and gracious to see you do so. However, I hope that at inner levels, where you will find it much more effortless to be sprightly, you shall endeavor to do so, and perhaps I shall have the privilege of welcoming you to our abode in Transylvania, where we do occasionally still entertain some of the advanced chelas, for we have not forgotten how to be happy, and I hope that we never will. Ladies and gentlemen, the compassion of God enfolds you today, and the compassion of God is that which shall change the world by the power of the sacred fire. Mankind, through human sympathies and the pull of the emotions, are often controlled by other individuals so that they are not truly free. And they think they are free, and they walk around and tell themselves that they are free, but they are not, for they are victims of a malicious malpractice which is fostered upon them by even those who claim to be religious throughout the world. Yet I would call to your attention that in the spirit of divine freedom, by the power of the sacred fire, each one, in facing the light of their own divinity, is able to find the purity of consciousness which shall give them full release from all human suggestions or human viciousness. Beloved ones, you are intended to be free. When the Marseillaise is played, the people of France find a great stirring and quickening within their heart. Little do they realize, that is the average person there, the reason for this activity. They do not know that it is the keynote of the ascended masters, and that it is truly charged with the power of liberty and the power of the beloved goddess of liberty. And yet you know it, and you are happy, and you feel the pulsation of the beat of freedom. Beloved ones, what would the mankind of earth do in this current crisis, and the crisis which has just passed, were it not for the violet flame? I ask you, ladies and gentlemen, the world does not know the debt of gratitude they owe to the ascended masters or to the ascended master activities, but keep them in blissful ignorance until such a time as they themselves shall seek illumination. And when they come to drink of the fount of our wisdom, they will indeed drink, and they will be merry along with others of our chelas. Beloved El Morya, long ago in one of his dictations, referred something to this matter, and he spoke of the gingerliness of the chelas who said that they were timid and did not wish to open the door. And they said, "Oh, open the door a little bit, but please do not disturb our world." Well, blessed and beloved ones, we intend to disturb your world. We intend to transmute it. We intend to turn it upside down and set it right side up, because that is exactly what has to take place in order to produce the perfection of God upon this planet. I tell you, ladies and gentlemen, I want to express gratitude to you for the subscription which you have made for this activity, and to enable beloved El Morya to have a means wherewith he can get his encyclical before the people. And I wish to thank those of you who have made sacrifices, and those of you who have pledged from your heart some measure of the portion which God has first given to you, to this activity. This is an act of your free will, generously given. And I am certain that the keeper of the scrolls, the one who keeps the records of each individual's life circumstances and happenings and events, will not in any way be unmindful to record the act of your own generous impulses. But, blessed and beloved ones, it is so utterly, utterly important for mankind to realize that the plans of God are awaiting externalization, and that it takes today men and women with courage, with dignity, with wisdom, with strength, and with fortitude to call forth from God the necessary energy to accomplish the cosmic purposes upon this earth. Some of you are aware of the great suffering of St. Teresa. Some of you are aware of how she passed up the stairs with this great wound upon her leg, and continued to scrub floors and perform menial tasks, and yet did not utter one word of remonstrance. Beloved ones, I would like to call to your attention that you may not all be St. Teresas. You may not all be St. Germain. But I would like to point out to you that I was not always St. Germain. There was a time when I was no different than any of you. I was at times filled with somewhat a timorous feeling concerning some of the gargantuan monsters of the days before my ascension, which stood before me and which had to be slain before I could make progress. These beasts, beloved ones, which are referred to in some of the old fairy tales, are more real than they are fictitious. For invisible creations of the black magicians which existed in those days were fierce to behold and had to be contended with at astral levels. You can be most grateful that these conditions have been transmuted and that you do not have to handle all of the viciousness which we handled in that day. But, ladies and gentlemen, you are aware that the measure that you are handling today is very great. But God indeed does temper the wind to the shorn lamb. And I do not think that you are shorn, for your strength is increasing, and it will increase and continue to do so by leaps and bounds as you maintain a measure of faith and a binding together of your hearts in love toward one another. You will recall that the 12 apostles performed momentous work in the early days of the Christian era. You will recall also how that I myself, when I was embodied as Christopher Columbus, continually persisted across the vicious seas which I faced into the then unknown areas of the world until this land was discovered. Beloved ones, there were many times when doubt assailed me, but I continued to cry, sail on, sail on. And therefore those of you who would win your ascension, who would attain the victory of St. Teresa, of El Morya, and would attain ascended master qualities, must realize that mastery comes by sailing on, by continually doing, not for the sake of glorifying your egos, for that, beloved ones, in itself has never brought you happiness, and you are the first to acknowledge it. But it will come to you by serving the ascended masters continually, and your own mighty I Am presence. Now, no one else can do this for you. There are millions of people, perhaps on this earth, who will tell you that they can, but they cannot. And ladies and gentlemen, I want you to be aware of that fact, that no one can perform the service of light for you that you yourselves can perform for yourselves by invoking and calling forth your own mighty I Am presence, and then making a call to those of us of the ascended host to assist you in becoming free even as we are. Oh, there is nothing wrong in calling to us, beloved ones, but I do not wish you to be victims of individuals who will promise you liberty when they themselves are still the servants of corruption. And so, in this activity, I hope self-reliance will be a medal, a badge of honor, which will be pinned upon each one of you, and that you will realize that you will tend more to the keeping of your own home fires burning than you will to worrying about the beacon lights of your neighbors or the lack of his attainment or her attainment in achieving some form of recognition from the ascended master's octave. Recognition, beloved ones, from our octave comes because of purity of heart. It comes because it was merited and not because we desired to cater to some individual's ego. And therefore, if we choose to honor some blessed individual at one time or another, we dishonor none else. We honor all. Every time an ascended being honors an individual, they are honoring all of life, for all of life is God. And therefore, I am sure that because of this class, many of you will return to your homes, fired anew with spiritual and cosmic enthusiasm. You will recognize that your night commander has spoken to you and said, sail on, move on, make progress, be exalted, lift up others, do the work of the Christ, assail the hordes of evil, and transmute all over the world the forces of shadow and darkness, and bring victory to this earth. And then as this earth rolls through the heavens, it will emit the beauteous tone which it was intended to emit, and the love tone of the earth will be heard in the great cosmic chord resounding through the solar system and out into the universe of which this solar system is a part. As I am speaking to you now, there comes from the great central sun a band of magnificent violet flame angels sent specially to bless this Easter class. They are taking the form of a great Maltese cross, and they shall form a band of light around the Washington Monument, with the center of the Maltese cross directly over the tip of the Washington Monument, and they shall radiate out to the four corners of the earth a flame for exactly 7,000 miles in every direction around the curvature of the earth to bless all who are under this canopy of the Maltese cross. These violet flame angels have come in answer to the call of the students, and they shall remain here and all through the period from now until Easter Sunday is over. And they shall bless the world with a remembrance of Him who taught you to do unto others as you would have others do unto you. And so I urge you to continue to give the cups of cold water in the name of the Christ, and if necessary more material substance. And above all, I urge you to give of yourselves without reserve. For it is only in the giving of yourselves to your Father in heaven that you can receive the full vestments of His authority and full release from all that never ought to have been. And yet, when you shall receive our fullness of light, it shall seem to you as though it never did exist. And you will shake my hand and say, Beloved Saint Germain, I am grateful to you for that day, that Saturday afternoon when you spoke to us and said, Pledge your hearts, pledge your heads, pledge your hands to the light, and the light will serve you in return and usher you into the beauty of eternal glory. Ladies and gentlemen, expectantly I await the time when I can vest you with knighthood in this sacred order of the Keepers of the Flame. Thank you, and good afternoon. In the name of my Lord, the Mahachohan, I greet you with the celestial spirit of springtime, the tide of ever-flowing glory, poured forth upon the earth periodically, the world around, according to the great cosmic cycle. I am here this day to speak to you of many splendid things, but specifically, beloved ones, concerning the freedom from the weight of oppression, depression, and all its attendant nonsense, and an exaltation of you into an expression of your own great unfolding God self. Beloved ones, think of the weight of your body for a moment, and then think of it no more. Consider yourselves to be made of light, with wings that pulsate and carry you through the air and through the atmosphere. With effortless ease, you glide from flower to flower. Your bodies nestle gently against the soft petals of a rose. You drink within the nectar cup of the floral kingdom, the distillation of the essences of God, the alchemical and chemical properties of immortality, of the angelic realm. You are no longer bound to the hardness of form and the rigidity of materiality. You enter a dimension of formless beauty and form beauty. Formless beauty because it is a manifestation of a perfect divine idea, and form beauty because it is the expression of the Father's love, tangibly manifesting as a crocus, a daffodil, the softness of a rose. You repose upon a floral couch, and it cushions the contours of your body and your form, and you recognize freedom from weight, depression, and oppression. Entering into the spirit of eternal springtime, mankind enters a state of the ascended masters. All is love here, all is beauty, and all is divine ritual. Magnify the Lord, O tender ones of earth, for though your days at present are numbered sometimes less than 70, you have eternity within your being. You are immortal, eternal. Your life goes on and on, endlessly pursuing a glorious destiny. The elemental life that serves you as the beings of the air, of the earth, of the fire, and of the water, these beings are different. They were created with a certain longevity, which in terminus est, and it ends and is no more. And from the plan of the Father, an endless procession of elemental life pours forth and then returns to the sun for repolarization. These elemental beings do live for prolonged periods of time. They do, beloved ones, have families, and they troop happily through the natural world of outdoor expression. But, beloved ones, they know from the beginning that their time is short. And so, beloved ones, there is no immortality to those beloved ones. And when their form like a flower disconnected from the stalk, lies lifeless before them. They hang their unhappy little heads for a moment, and mankind, in their fear of death, have assumed the elemental outpicturing. Mankind have amplified this far beyond the elementals outpicturing of this quality, for the elementals know from the beginning that they do not have immortality. Beloved Funway, through the grace of ascended Master Ariel, was able to transcend and to rise out of that into the human, and thus achieve a bond, as beloved Saint Germain has spoken of in the past, whereby he could tie himself in to human mortality and thus bridge the gap from the elemental life and reach in to his own immortality. Blessed ones, these tiny elementals thus serve mankind without even the recompense and certainty of immortality. Do you not owe them then to cut them free from the density of human miscreation, and let them happily express the eternal springtime of life? I think that in your hearts most of you feel that you do, and you are ever so willing, so joyous, so happy to pour your love to the elementals and to bless them and set them free to return to the heart of God. You, beloved ones, are most fortunate. I am the resurrection and the life has a special meaning for you. Though made a little lower than the angels, mankind are crowned with the glory of immortality, the power of the perpetuation of the divine ideal, the personification of deity, rising and ascending by reason of its own innate virtue, until as a son and daughter of God, it outpictures all the glory of the ascended Master's octave. I, Amaryllis, am so happy today to commend you for your devotion and your simple fun in coming here to this altar and adorning it in honor of my coming. And I am here. I am here to greet you in the name of God, your own mighty I Am Presence. I am here to greet you with a sense of eternal spring, so that you will lift yourselves today through conscious, intelligent effort into the ascended Master's octave of happiness in the divine life, and will erase all thoughts of morbidity from your consciousness. Do not ask the little elementals to take on dejection and sadness, despondency, hatred, discord. Let them be free from that, especially from our chelas. Our chelas know God. Let them know also these tiny laborers in the vineyards of the Father. Let them love the elementals and speak to them and bless them daily. And let them thus exalt the God in all. For various reasons I shall terminate this address most suddenly. The light of God does not fail. Thank you, and good morning. Most gracious and beloved children of the Most High God, I, Funway, am come into your midst this day to bring you a sense of the resurgence of life and the divine idea of maintaining perfect happiness, buoyancy, jubilation, and understanding of the flow of divine energy into your world. Grace, graciousness, symmetry, and beauty are never idolatrous. If so, they idolize the divinity within man, and this is no idolatry, but an exaltation of the eternal principle of being. And therefore I say to you, learn not to chastise yourself for feelings of devotion to your God presence and to those individuals who have become ascended masters and children of the Most High God in a radiant sun manifestation. You are so destined, beloved ones, to reflect the self-same happiness of the ascended master's octave, and therefore today I am happy to bring to you a feeling of the eternal power of your being, that part of you which knows no decay, but only knows the exaltation of the eternal life principle. The eternal life principle is, I repeat, God within you, and yet, because mankind seem to fear to worship, and I point this out to you, and this is an absolute fact, although there is a great deal of worship going on all over the world, mankind sometimes fear to worship because they are not certain just what or who they are worshiping. Therefore let them no longer be concerned about it, but have a way of perfect happiness by adoring their own mighty I Am presence first, and then, having paid their homage and adoration to their own great divinity, the creator of life, look out upon his creation and perceive the God as points of light within that creation, and then adore the points of light within the creation, the foci of God, in varying manifestations, whether manifesting as an angelic being, or as an elemental, or as a grain of wheat. Blessed ones, conscious life does not desire to be worshipped itself, but it is desirable to worship the splendor of God within the electron, within the atom, and within the structure of all creation. And therefore it is desirable that mankind realize that inasmuch as the world, the universe, the sun, and all that is a creation of pure light, let happiness permeate your consciousness, and do not have a sense of frustration and fear. Mankind today are often backward children. They hold one another by the hand, and they say, "Come, go with me." Or they say, "Be careful, do not go in this direction." But I would like to end all that and point out to mankind that fear is not a part of the plan of God. The Father, blessed ones, is like an eternal sun, and his rays are anchored in each heart. He knows the intentions of your heart, and if therefore you pour out your attention to this chart, beloved ones, recognizing it as a symbol of your own God presence, and knowing, of course, that it is not the paper and ink that you are adoring, but it is the divine reality, which is your own mighty I Am presence, then, beloved ones, you are not practicing idolatry, but an idolizing happiness, which will bring to you nothing but benignity and kindness and good, and all that will produce perfection within your world. I have a specific reason this morning for speaking as I am. It is not for most of you, but for a few of you who may not understand the reason why attention is paid and adoration is paid to various ascended beings. Mankind, having lost the great divine memory of their being, in their dimness of perception, fail to realize that they are the creation of God, and they deign to pay homage to one another, and this produces a feeling of frustration and a lack of perfect happiness. If mankind will learn the way of paying tribute to the God within one another, they will recognize that it is not robbery, that it is the manifestation of perfect beauty. After all, beloved ones, do you not worship at the floral altars of the world? Do you not adore the creation of God within the perfect symmetry of a flower creation? Then as you behold one another's face, consider them as lilies, as pure flowers of God virtue and God design. Then you will not fear to pay respect and tribute to each life stream. Do not seek to see the sordid within that life stream, to pierce the aura and search therein to find what form of sordid quality manifested in a previous embodiment or in this one, but look rather for the Christ image, the image of immortality within that heart, and you shall invoke the spirit of eternal happiness. After all, beloved ones, are you not held within the hollow of God's own hand? Have you not invoked the presence of life? Did you not call forth this morning the protection of your own tube of light, and call for the violet fire of transmutation around you? Whom then do you fear? Perfect love, beloved ones, casts out all fear, and fear does indeed have torment, and it prevents a perfect flow of the divine energy through the nervous system and through your body, through your brain, and through your mind. It is not the fun way to live, beloved ones. It is the way of unhappiness then, and therefore I urge that you cast off and slough off all situations of mind and heart which are not the perfect happiness of God, and learn to look upon all life as the beautiful life of God in perfect manifestation. This is no situation, beloved ones, where you pull a hood over your eyes, or where you put your head in the sand like an ostrich. You are not failing to see reality when you do this, for did not God himself do this? Did he not look upon his creation when he had finished it according to the exposition in Genesis and declare that the Lord God saw the creation which he had made, and behold, it was good? Therefore, beloved ones, you are emulating your Father, and you are manifesting his eternal felicity and happiness and grace when you do this. I have come into your midst this morning to bring you a feeling of perfect buoyancy and happiness, to lift your spirits from the doldrums, as it were, and to keep you in a state of perpetual exaltation for the balance of this embodiment, if you will give to the divine goddess of justice the spirit of her perfection, and will not desire to weigh others in the scales of balance, but to weigh yourselves against the perfection of your own immortal presence. Beloved ones, by this means you will escape the errors of imperfection, and you will stand forth shining as Christ in righteousness, to rebuke in mankind the qualities of destruction and gossip and deceit and calumny, and you will stand forth assisting the divine plan until the full perfection of God clothes every child of earth in immortal robes of righteousness, of the ascended Jesus Christ consciousness. Ladies and gentlemen, I, Fan Wei, thank you, and I wish now that you would have your special service dedicated to the spirit of spring, for though I have spoke briefly, these words can mean your immortal freedom. In the name of the spirit of the great white brotherhood, by the power of the sacred fire, by the power of light, which flowed through the Lemurian civilization, through the Atlantean civilization, and flows through the heart of America, India, the United Nations, and the world. I, Fan Wei, take leave of you this morning. Long ago I was embodied in the land of China, and therefore my name, Fan Wei, was given to me from that particular specific embodiment. But, beloved ones, bear in mind that I was an elemental, escaped from the elemental realm, and elevated through the grace of beloved Ariel, the ascended master, into the human consciousness, and thence up into the realm of my own ascension in the light. Let this glorious ascension in the light enter into your consciousness, and consider for yourselves what it shall mean to you. Outpicture then daily the thought about the ascension into the light of God, which never, never, never fails. I thank you, most gracious ones, and bid you good morning. chelas of the sacred fire. From the splendor of the will of God, I am this night manifesting here a ray of love for the will of the Eternal One within your hearts. Won't you please be seated? Long ago, in my native country, India, there dwelled a very wealthy Maharaja who had a young son who, through disobedience to his father, proceeded to go outside the gate of the palace and wander in a very barren and dangerous region, inhabited by the wild beasts. And it came to pass that because of a disturbance in the forest, a herd of wild elephants were frightened, and so they came rushing across the plain and dashed toward the young lad, who was in great fear and torment. He had no place, it seemed, to hide, and the elephants were trumpeting across the plain, and the very earth seemed to be shaking. As his little heart was pounding, he looked first to the right and then to the left, and then above. And from above came an inspiration to him to search the terrain most carefully. And as his tiny eyes scanned the terrain, he perceived the trunk of an old tree which was rotted and hollowed out. And so the young lad proceeded to dash toward this tree trunk, and he placed his body down within it. It just filled the trunk, and it came to pass that the herd of wild elephants passed by, and they touched him not. When they were gone, he emerged, and ever thereafter proceeded to adore tree trunks. Blessed and beloved ones, all substance is holy. Many things which seem useless to mankind are useful to God and may sometimes serve you well. To have discrimination, to be able to perceive the value within things, and the value particularly within the gifts and graces which are entrusted to your keeping, is a most valuable adjunct to discipleship. Like the young lad, you cannot be guaranteed immunity from the trampling and onrushing hordes of mass Maya and karma. But like the young lad, you can seek shelter, knowing that the Father is able to give you protection through this magnificent tube of light, which is of far greater value than 1,000,000 tree trunks. Many of the disciples have had the experience of testing the tube of light under most bitter circumstances, and they have found that it is invulnerable indeed. Now, blessed ones, I would like you for a moment to dwell upon the thought of the will of God as a great potential tube of light itself. The will of God is itself a great wall of light. And when individuals shall recognize that the will of God is a wall of light, and shall proceed to walk encompassed around about by the will of God, they are invulnerably protected against evil. Deliver us from evil, then, becomes a fiat which each man may utter And this utterance is silent obedience at times to the will of God. For this is the golden silence of divine experience, whereby the Chela accepts the will of God as good and determines to walk therein, regardless of how many other voices may whisper to that one, "This is the way, walk ye in it." The true Chela knows that the will of God is good and prefers it to his own exterior will, or the glamour of the ways of mankind, which do not and cannot produce permanent perfection. I pause now that you may absorb some of the thoughts of my heart, which I am silently radiating forth. You know, blessed ones, it is not always necessary for us to speak audibly. There are times that we elect to give individuals specific messages within their own heart. Those who have ears to hear, eyes to see, and perception are able to receive. Those whose eyes have waxed dull, whose hearing is not all that it ought to be, can then recognize, simply because they cannot hear, that they have a need to develop a specific quality of spiritual hearing and a specific quality of spiritual vision. Recognizing their own deficiencies and recognizing the power of deity to bestow upon them every good and gracious gift, they then ask the Father to bestow upon them these gifts, and having received them, they find that they are no longer bereft of the gifts of heaven's sons. And therefore I, Morya, Chohan of the first ray, do choose now to whisper a specific message to every ear within this room, to those sons and daughters of God, and to those who are the children of God. Let both hear, for I shall speak to each one individually. I do not guarantee that each one shall apprehend the fullness of my message, but I am certain, if you call to your own God presence for illumination, that sooner or later the message I shall whisper to each and every one of you without fail this night shall penetrate into your consciousness and bring to you the beat of eternal perfection, a specific God quality which is necessary for you in order for you to make orderly progress in the plans of an infinite God, especially and noted for your own life stream and representing the love of God as well as the will of God. Hear then that which Morya speaks. I am your host this night. I invite you on wings of light and wings of love, your own love and the developed light of your hearts, to journey with me now across the land of this great nation to the harbor of New York, across the rolling waves of the Atlantic to my beloved England, and on across the plains of Russia, and then over the mountains and to the splendor of Darjeeling. I am inviting you this night, on wings of light and love, to come to our towering minarets, to enter into our home of love and light, and to know that the compassion of God and the brotherhood at Darjeeling is extended to all, that our welcome is given most graciously. Beloved ones, I would like to remind you that it is the prerogative of an ascended being to recognize those whom he will as his equal. I choose tonight to exalt the deity within you, which is already an exalting principle and the only exalting principle of existence, and to honor that deity that is within you, and to call forth as a chrysalis the light within the atoms of your existence and being, the God design within every cell of your body, your minds, and your beings, and by the power of spiritual exaltation to lift you up into your God design and to greet you as an equal, as a member of our fraternity. And so, although all are not, I choose to greet all as though all were. And I ask you then to accept first a mantle of light, which is pure white. This is a cape of light which I am placing upon your shoulders. It is fastened with a diamond cluster at the neck. White ermine is the hem and border of this mantle. It is lined with the finest white silk. On the back of this cape there is a beautiful blue flame. This blue flame blazes within a diamond, and the diamond is within a pink heart. The will of God expresses thus within a heart filled with the immaculate concept of divine love. I would point out to all that a diamond was once but a lump of coal, and once but vegetation. Through the process of the pressures of nature, the vegetation becomes the lump of coal, and the lump of coal through continuing pressures becomes the diamond. The hardened carbon, therefore, is crystallized into the purity of the diamond, which reflects the multifaceted splendor of the sun. And so it is with the will of God. Mankind in their human consciousness look upon one another and perceive lumps of coal. I do not this night look upon you as lumps of coal or as shadowed substance, but I perceive you all as diamond, shining creations of the Most High, brothers of light, brothers of Darjeeling, sisters of light, sisters of Darjeeling. And therefore I bid you welcome. Thank you, blessed ones. Your rising to this occasion is accepted by the brotherhood at Darjeeling, who in return have caused to fall through the atmosphere of this room a shower of diamond points of light, which shall continue to fall for a period of 12 hours, until by tomorrow noon you shall enter this room in your physical forms and pass through to the region of your heart, a wall of solid diamond crystalline substance from the heart of God, as you enter this room tomorrow, this substance which shall continue to fall and accumulate like new fallen snow shall surround your bodies and pack them. And all of that substance shall radiate through your bodies, through the entire class tomorrow. It shall be absorbed by those who shall sit in our radiation and shall assist you for the balance of your life stream. I regret that I cannot confer this honor upon all those who shall read these words in the printed form. The great cosmic law tonight has limited it to those who are here in physical embodiment. Nevertheless, I do bestow through this a special radiation of the diamond heart upon all who shall read these words. Won't you please be seated? Blessed ones, it would be amusing if it were amusing to perceive skepticism and doubt in the hearts of men, but it is not amusing. Doubt is like a wall. It closes the door to each one's divinity. The disciple Thomas, although he followed the Christ and perceived magnificent miracles, the raising of the dead, the healing of the leper, the multiplication of the loaves and the fishes, and many other magnificent God designs through the hand of the Christ, Thomas could not accept, beloved ones, the resurrection of the Christ. And so he said, until I see with my own eyes and place my fingers in the nail prints of his hand, I will not believe. The Christ did appear to him and said to him, blessed are you who have seen and believed, but more blessed are those who have not seen and yet believed. And so I, Morya, children of the first ray, declare to you tonight that those who believe in me, those who believe in God, those who believe in the ascended masters, though they have not seen, are even more blessed than those who have seen. And yet there are those among you who have seen. You have beheld. Your eyes have been opened. But other eyes are not yet opened, and yet they believe. In this full faith, there is a release of the eternal substance which cannot be given where there is doubt. You are not dealing, beloved ones, with outer world laws. When you write a check, and mankind accept this check, they do so with full faith that the check is good, and that there is a balance on hand in your account. If subsequently they find that, as you would say, it is made of rubber, they are somewhat disturbed. And so I think that many people are frightened that they themselves might accept a rubber check. Well, let me tell you, beloved ones, I am not a rubber check, and I do not expect that you will find that I will bounce. I want you to know that this law is a profound law of the universe, and my mighty light rays are pouring through this place now. If you doubt it, then look between your eyes. Put your attention above your eyebrows for a moment and see if you cannot feel the pulsation of our currents and our energy. Some of you do not realize that time must elapse ere the sensory organs of the spirit can be opened. If any of you were to bind your arm behind your back and not use your right or your left arm for a period of a few months, you would find it useless. Many who are bedridden within a few weeks find they are unable to move thereafter for some time until circulation and the power to navigate is restored to them. So I think, beloved ones, it is understandable that spiritual sight which is vested in foci, in various sensory organs which are anchored within the physical form, must be themselves opened, and illumination must come to them. How do you suppose your beloved messenger and our beloved messenger is able to enter into our octave if his spiritual vision were not opened? If you will study this chart, beloved ones, you will observe the diagrams here of the various centers and foci of light. These foci are tangible within mankind. They exist within all, but in many they lie dormant. Why then will individuals doubt that which they cannot see? Simply because they do not see it, they doubt it. Television sets, beloved ones, are now a common instrument, and yet it is possible this very day to televise a picture from Darjeeling or from Luxor, and to transmit a picture of the pyramids or the Taj Mahal or our Palace of Light. This is tangible. Mankind can behold it with their eyes. But unless they have the instrument, and all of the tubes are functioning, and the electric current is turned on, they are not able to tune in with this distant happening. Therefore, beloved ones, this is so understandable if you will compare the natural law with the spiritual law. All things must function in divine order. God's plans are to exalt mankind into the fullness of their individual identification with himself. The religions of the world have benefited the world, and so the world today has received a multitude of blessings through the religions of the world. But skepticism, agnosticism, atheism, and a great cloud of unbelief has emanated forth from the religions of the world simply because the mankind of earth do not always give the required obedience. And yet the moral laws expounded and magnified by the religions of the world have been a great cement to the social structure of the earth. And all mankind are the beneficiaries of an increasingly exalting codification of natural law, manifesting through the scales of divine justice. God is just, the universe is just, the will of God is just. Sit erect in your seats, ladies and gentlemen. Sit erect in your seats. Let the great cosmic currents descend now from the heart of your own God presence and circulate around your spinal columns. Feel a surge of power that is released as these currents pass over your so-called third eye. Recognize that we have the power to magnetize your spinal altar so that the cosmic fires ascending and descending thereupon will bring your attention up to your own God presence, your great spiritual self, and magnify the God within you. Ladies and gentlemen, how many of you would love to journey tonight in your physical bodies and enter into our Palace of Light? And yet, as I am speaking to you, I have offered you the opportunity of coming here in spiritual form, which is even more tangible and more beneficial, beloved ones, than even a physical visit, unless it were accompanied by the full intensity of your dedication. Now, ladies and gentlemen, let me call to your attention that to be a disciple of the Great White Brotherhood is the highest calling that can come to any man, woman, or child. There exists no greater honor, and yet the world knows it not. But the world knew him not, beloved ones. It knew him not. You cannot, beloved ones, look to the world for honor if you would find honor from God. God is naturally just, and never in any of my embodiments have I ever been able to prove to the contrary. And when I made my ascension in the light, I knew with eternal certitude that no one ever could. The justice of God, the immaculate love of His will and of His heart, is so all-enfolding that itself it is a magnificent diamond-like flame. It cuts through all psychic substance and dissipates all vain and futile human emotion. It transmutes all misqualified substance into ascended master light. It destroys inharmony and disease by transmuting it. Now, this might be called a play upon words, but it is not. It is the truth stated in one way. There are many ways of stating truth. But what is most important is the understanding of truth by the student body. It does not matter so much how it is stated, it matters how it is understood. And so we have chosen to phrase ourselves in divers manners, in divers places, and each ascended master has exercised their prerogative and has expressed themselves with a different vibratory action in order to reach into the hearts of the student body and fashion therein a greater outpicturing of the eternal Christ consciousness. If you doubt the reality of the ascended masters, beloved ones, do not doubt your own reality. Do not doubt the reality that beats your heart. Do not doubt the reality that is your eternal being. And I know with full confidence that anyone that doubts and still pursues the path, at the end of a certain appointed time, that one shall come to a realization of the fullness of God perfection. Act then, therefore, even if you have the slightest inkling of doubt within you. Act as though you had full faith, and you will soon obtain full faith. Beloved ones, I recall to your attention the story of the centurion who approached the Christ and asked for an absent healing of a member of his family. He said, I am a man who has men under me, and I say to this one, go here, and he goes, and to this one, come, and he cometh. And the Christ sent forth the light, and the healing took place and transpired. And the Christ, gazing upon him, said, I have not found so great a faith, no, not in Israel. Beloved ones, you must be willing to accept in full faith the call to your own discipleship, as you are willing to accept the beating of your own heart, moment by moment. You must be willing to put aside the vain and unhappy chain of experiences which has never lifted you into the fullness of your Christ image. As depicted in this chart, the Holy Christ self of your own existence must hold your hand until by the contact of that Holy Christ mediatorship you shall have received the full outpouring of the measure of the Christ within your own physical, mental, and etheric nature. Now pause for a moment and consider what the meaning of this is. The measure of the Christ is the fullness of perfection. And when you shall accept the measure of the Christ within your etheric memory, you shall be concerned with the divine memory experiences of your Holy Christ self. And you shall desire to incorporate within your worlds, minds, and affairs the spiritual experiences which have transpired at divine levels. You shall no longer desire to revolve and dwell upon and consider a multitude of unpleasant experiences which have happened to you in this embodiment and in a multitude of past embodiments. Rather, you shall seek to know that which your holy Christ self has known and knows, and you shall become both known and knower of the mysteries of God. You shall be stewards of God, vested with a mantle of eternal discipleship. The memory of the Christ is held within the holy Christ self of each life stream. It can descend into your consciousness. Your mental body, beloved ones, is capable, just as capable of retaining the mind of God as it is in retaining the mind of man. Think upon that. Before a book is printed, beloved ones, the composition is determined by the author. God is the author of the book of life, and as the Holy Christ self descends the mind of God into your mind, that which is known of God is known of you, and by you, and for you. No Father pledges his own being, his own mind for you, to raise you into his consciousness.